listening to the Sermon Podcast of Brockport First Baptist. We are a progressive American Baptist congregation located about 20 minutes outside of Rochester, New York. To learn more about our church and support our ministries, please visit brockportfirstbaptist.org.
Our scripture reading for today is Genesis 37, 12 through 36. It can be found on pages 30 through 31 of your pew Bibles. Now Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." And he answered, "Here I am." So he said to him, "Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring word back to me." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron. He came to Shechem, and a man found him wandering in the fields. The man asked him, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking my brothers," he said. "Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." The man said, "They have gone away, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he came near to them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he delivered him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand and restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the adornmented robe that he wore, and he took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, carrying gum, balm, and resin on their way down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. When some Mennonite traders passed by, they drew Joseph up, lifting him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes. He returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and where can I turn?" Then they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They had the ornamented robe taken to their father, and they said, "This we have found. See now whether it is your son's robe or not." He recognized it and said, "This is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his own garments and put on sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son for many days. All his sons and all his daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go down to Sheol with my son mourning." Thus his father bewailed him. Meanwhile, the Mennonites had sold him to Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. And thank you, Laura, for that reading. So for the last 2 weeks now, we have been back in the book of Genesis looking at the story of Joseph and his Brosephs. That means brothers for the uninitiated. Last week, we talked about Joseph's dreams. Joseph is a 17-year-old kid. He is the 11th of 12 brothers, and he's the favorite. Joseph's dad, Jacob, loves him more than all the other kids. Even gave him a fancy coat. And Joseph let his status as the favorite son go to his head a little bit. He starts having these dreams where he's at the top of his family, and his siblings and his parents are bowing down to him. Of course, he tells his brothers about these dreams, which just fills them with envy and rage. In our story today that Laura just read for us, Joseph's brothers attack him, strip him naked, throw him in a pit, and plan to kill him before finally deciding to sell him into slavery. And this is a story we teach kids in Sunday school. I know that's where I first learned it. We don't think about it very often in the context of the story, but this is an incredibly dark story. It's a story about human trafficking. An innocent 17-year-old kid being sold into slavery by his own family. It's a horrible story. At the same time, this is also a story that is loaded with all sorts of little Easter eggs and goodies. There are callbacks to earlier stories. There's foreshadowing of what's coming, layer upon layer of exciting, fun little rabbit holes we could go down and explore together. I'm torn by this one as a preacher, just being fully transparent. Because on one hand, I want to deal with the seriousness of this story, the dark, heavy nature of what's being depicted here. At the same time, though, my inner Bible nerd is like, we can talk about this, we can talk about this, we can talk about that. So here's how we're going to handle this. Here's what we're going to do today. We are going to start with the Easter eggs. The kids get to do their own Easter egg hunt in a couple weeks, but for today, we're going to do our own little hunt through this story, looking at all the little hidden gems right under our noses. That's the first part of the sermon. Then we're going to talk about the gravity of this story, the darkness of what's happening in this text. So let's get into it. Bible nerd mode activates. Our story begins with Joseph's Brosephs shepherding their father's flock out near Shechem. Now, when you hear the word Shechem, a little alarm should go off in your head, because we've been to Shechem before. Does anyone remember what went down in Shechem? You can answer if you remember. It's possible no one remembers. It's been a few months, which is okay. Do you guys remember the story of the slaughter in Shechem? Dinah, the sister of these brothers? Yeah, I see some ahas coming on some of your faces. Joseph and his brothers have a sister named Dinah. And one day, Dinah went down to Shechem. And while she was there, she hooked up with the prince of Shechem. And a few of her brothers didn't like that too much. And we don't exactly know why. If you read the story of Dinah, the details are vague, and there's not many of them. It's possible that what went down between Dinah and the prince of Shechem wasn't consensual. He might have raped her. There could have been some sort of violation. It's also possible that it was consensual. They were in love, but Dinah's brothers took issue with her having sex with a foreigner. It's possible to read it either way. We really don't know. Whatever the case, though, Dinah's brothers, the 10 big brothers of Joseph, went down to Shechem and killed everybody. They slaughtered every male in the city. Do we remember that story now? It's an awful story. So when you hear the word Shechem, you should be thinking bloodbath. Bad things happen in Shechem, especially when these 10 guys are there. And now, little Joseph is on his way to Shechem to meet his brothers with his shiny new coat. Easter egg number 1. Joseph gets to Shechem. He can't find his brothers, so an unnamed stranger points him in the right direction. It's this weird part of the story, totally random, not connected to anything else. Joseph gets lost, and some dude tells him where to go. But some of the ancient rabbis believed that this unnamed stranger was God. There is nothing in the text that indicates this person is God. In fact, God is surprisingly absent from the Joseph story. God doesn't show up and talk to Joseph the way God did to Abraham or to Jacob. But there have been other stories in Genesis where we meet mysterious, unnamed strangers, like the nameless man who wrestled with Jacob until the morning, or the 3 nameless visitors who come to Sarah and Abraham. Every time we encounter some mysterious, unnamed person in Genesis, it's always explained as either God or angels. So some people believe this mysterious, unnamed stranger who shows Jacob the way was God. And I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. Maybe. That's another Easter egg, though. Finally, Joseph finds his brothers. They see him coming from ways away. Apparently, this coat of his could be seen from quite a distance. And Joseph's brothers say this, verse 19. Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. This is obviously a reference to last week, Joseph's dreams, except that his brothers don't actually say, here comes this dreamer. That's not a literal translation of the Hebrew. What they actually say is, here comes this dream master. Here comes this dream master, which of course has a double meaning. His brothers mean, here comes that guy who dreams of being our master, right? The dream master. But as we're going to learn as this story goes on, Joseph is a different kind of dream master. Joseph has the ability to interpret people's dreams. You tell him your dream, he tells you your future. It's his mutant power, basically. Here comes that dream master. Little foreshadowing. Another Easter egg. Joseph's the brothers throw him in a ditch. They're going to kill him. But then Reuben steps up. Reuben is the oldest brother, the first of 12, a man known for his sandwiches. There we go, you're listening. I'm going to make that joke every time we mention Reuben, by the way. But no, what's Reuben really known for? Does anyone remember what Reuben did? What'd you say? He did something with his father's concubine, yeah. Reuben had sex with one of his father's wives, which was a no-no back then, just so we're clear. It's not something lost in context there. That was bad. Jacob had 4 wives, 2 wives, 2 concubines, to be technical. Reuben was born to Leah, Jacob's first wife, but then as an adult, Reuben slept with Bilhah, his father's 4th wife, one of the concubines, and Jacob finds out about it. That is the background you need to know to understand the subtext of this next part of the story, starting in verse 19. Joseph's brothers said to one another, here comes this dream master. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. But when Reuben heard it, he delivered him out of their hands, saying, let us not take his life. Reuben said to them, shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand and restore him to their father. So Reuben's got a plan. He stops his brothers from killing Joseph and throws him in a pit instead so he can go back and rescue him later in secret. What a good guy. Is Reuben doing this out of the goodness of his heart because he just loves Joseph so much? No. Reuben's trying to get back in the good graces of his father. Maybe if I save the golden boy, the favorite son, maybe maybe Dad will forget about all that Bilhah stuff. Have I mentioned this is one messed up family? I said that? Yes. So Reuben rescues Joseph, throws him in a pit. The brothers sit down to eat lunch. I'm going to imagine it was Reuben's. But then this caravan of traders comes by, and Judah, the fourth son, gets an idea. Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. Judah's such a nice guy, huh? Let's not kill Joseph and be guilty of murder. Let's sell him and make some money. Judah's a terrible person. We're going to talk more about Judah next week. For now, though, the brothers sell Joseph into slavery. Then they fake his death. They take this fancy robe, this fancy coat his father gave him. They kill a goat, dip the coat in the blood, and they go home and they present the robe to their father. Verse 33. Jacob recognized the robe and said, "It is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and all his daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go down to Sheol, to the grave, to my son in mourning." Thus his father bewailed him. Jacob is absolutely heartbroken here. His favorite child, the son of promise, is dead, as far as he knows. And he vows to spend the rest of his life in mourning. There are two little callbacks here that echo earlier stories in Genesis about brothers turning on each other. The first is Esau and Jacob. Do we remember the Esau and Jacob story? Jacob has now grown up. He is the father in this story. Joseph and his brothers are his kids. And they learned their deceitful behavior from their dad. Jacob deceived his blind father Isaac by stealing his brother Esau's coat, killing a goat or a lamb, dressing up with Esau, and even tying the lamb's skin around his arms to pass himself off as Esau, who was very hairy. Do we remember this? Jacob took his brother's coat and killed a goat to deceive his father. Now in this story, decades later, Joseph's sons take their brother's coat, kill a goat, and deceive Jacob. Do we see the parallel there, the connection? It's called irony. Back when we were reading the story of Jacob months ago, a number of you mentioned to me that you don't like Jacob very much. I don't like Jacob very much either. Jacob's not a likable character. For months, we're reading these stories where Jacob cons one person after another, lying, cheating, stealing, and somehow always getting away with it. We read these stories, and over again, it's like, when is this guy going to get his comeuppance? When is Jacob going to pay for all the chaos he sowed in his family? In this story, it comes full circle. Jacob finally gets his comeuppance. And I don't know about you, but I find it incredibly unsatisfying. Be careful what you wish for your enemies and all the unsavory characters we encounter in the world. Be careful of the way human beings like to take revenge and call it justice. The way that one act of violence tends to snowball into another and another and another, almost always taking down innocent people along the way. Guard your heart, especially when it comes to the enemies, the people that you view as the bad guys, because what goes around really does come around eventually. We don't have to root for it, and we don't have to help it along. We understand this? Perfect. This story echoes back to Esau and Jacob. Just one more callback, last Easter egg, to Cain and Abel. Do you guys remember the Cain and Abel story? We know that one? Okay. Cain seethed with jealousy because God liked Abel's offering more than his. Then God warns Cain not to act on that jealousy. God says, sin is a wild beast, Cain, crouching at the door of your heart. You can master it. You must master that beast. Of course, Cain doesn't master it. He embraces the beast and becomes the beast and murders his brother Abel. In the same way, Jacob believes that Joseph fell victim to beasts, and he's not wrong. Joseph's Brosephs become beasts, faking their brother's death, selling him into slavery, doing incredible harm to their family, their brother, and their father. This is a dark story. It's a story depicting the depths of human evil. The Bible's very realistic in its depiction of human nature, the depths we will go to in our sin and wickedness to harm other people. I think a lot of us have bought into the cultural myth of progress, the idea that things are just going to get better and better because humans are basically good. We're improving over time. We're learning. We managed to beat fascism and communism. Give us enough time, we'll conquer all the other isms of the world eventually. But that's not how human nature works. Things don't just magically improve over time. There is no guarantee of progress. Human nature hasn't changed that much in 4,000 years, back when this story happened. We are just as twisted, sinful, and capable of destruction as Jacob and his sons. If you have any doubt about that, look at our world. Look at what American bombs do to the Iranians. Look at what Iranian bombs are doing to their neighbors. Look at what ICE is doing to our neighbors. Human beings are beloved children of God, made in God's image, who are capable of horrendous evil. The Bible understands that. It depicts that and confronts us with that. And that makes some of us very uncomfortable. I don't want to believe that a father would instill this level of deception in his own children. I don't want to believe that brothers would do something so terrible to one of their own. But I look at our world, and I look at my own heart, and I know that it's true. It's easy to feel powerless when we are confronted with this level of darkness, but I want to leave us with two words of hope, two little pieces of hope to pull out of this story to hold us over until things get a little bit better. Number one, God is still at work even when it looks like God is doing nothing. God is still at work even when it looks like God is doing nothing. If you just take this story and read it as a monolith, God is nowhere to be found. Like maybe God's the nameless guy who points Joseph on his way. Who knows? But otherwise, on the surface, it looks like God's not working at all in this story. And yet, if you zoom out and look at the story as a whole, God is somehow mysteriously involved in all of it. I don't claim to understand how divine providence works. I don't believe, for example, that God's up in heaven working a bunch of levers to make things happen here on earth. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that just because something happens, that means it's automatically God's will or that God let it happen. But the Joseph story reveals a God who is always at work, a God who understands the depths of human evil and is always working to overcome that evil with good. A God who is there with Joseph in the pit, a God who is there to comfort Jacob in his grief, a God who aligns his will with every marginalized person in every corner of the globe. We live in dark times, but God is working in all of it, even when we don't see it. That's one piece of hope. Another one I want to leave you with, though, is really more a word of direction for us. Focus your energy on the good you can do, not the evils that are out of your control. It is so easy to feel powerless watching the news or doom scrolling through social media, because the reality is there's not much you or I can do about bombs falling in Iran. We can call our representatives, let them know how we feel. I hope you've done that. We can give to organizations like World Relief that work on refugee resettlement. We can pray. We can vote. But if 51% of our neighbors vote for absolute evil, there's not much we can do about it. But there is a lot we can do right here in our own community and our own families. If you care about what ICE is doing to our neighbors, you can connect with a group like Rochester Rapid Response Network. You can come to that next training. May 14th, here at the church, we will be having a training, an information session for you to learn ways that you can help. You can train to be a rapid responder, someone who shows up when ICE is active in our neighborhood and documents their actions. You can also sign up, as the Thorpes mentioned, for lower risk activities like driving people to the doctor or delivering groceries to immigrant families. This past Wednesday, I got a text at about 8:30 in the morning letting me know that ICE was on Erie Street, right on our block. I showed up along with Elizabeth, the rector from over at St. Luke's, and about a half dozen other people from Brockport who've been trained as rapid responders. We spent the entire morning on Wednesday following 6 ICE vehicles through the village. These pictures are from our community. Elizabeth and I got cornered behind Coronas by about a dozen ICE agents. It was terrifying. This is what I can do. It might not be what you can do. This stuff is scary, and you might not have a day job that allows you the freedom to follow ICE around all morning on occasion. Leave that to the clergy. You can start much smaller and much more local. You can start with your own family. I came across a quote from Mother Teresa this week, Saint Teresa now, I think, right? If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. That is an appropriate quote for our reading today. Imagine how differently this story would have gone if Jacob loved all his kids equally. If he hadn't passed on the traumas he received from his family onto his kids. So much of the conflict in our world, from small stuff to really big stuff, stems from unresolved family trauma. If you want an example, I give you the President of the United States. I know we don't have a lot of Donald Trump fans in this room. A number of you have asked me, how can I love my enemy president? What does it look like to love Donald Trump? I've gotten that question from at least 8 or 9 of you in this room. More than that, you're right, Senora Carmen. Loving our enemies begins with seeing them as human beings. Donald Trump is a man desperate for his father's love and approval, who never received it. So much of the chaos and the violence and the evil in our world stems from unresolved family traumas. Sins that are passed from one generation to the next. Israel and Palestine is one of those conflicts. The United States and Iran is another one that goes back generations. If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Address the conflicts in your family. Make amends with your family. If you learn nothing else from this story, take that from it. Break the cycles of addiction, abuse, racism, sibling rivalries, favoritism, family feuds. Don't pass that crap on to your kids. Raise your children to love and follow Jesus. And if you don't have kids of your own, or if you are estranged from your family, love the family you've got. Whatever that looks like. Love your community. Love your coworkers. Invest in the found family of this church. Mentor a kid. Befriend some young parents and help mentor them. Treat the people God brings into your life with love and kindness the way Jesus would. It really is that simple. There is so much darkness in our world, so many evils that are beyond our control. Focus your energies on the good you can do, whatever that looks like. Let's pray. God, help us to be peacemakers who break the cycles of trauma that sow chaos in our families and threaten to unmake the world. Help us learn from these difficult, at times dark stories, the Bible's realistic depiction of human nature, so that we can put our trust in you and in your Son as we work to bring light out of darkness. Amen.